Hello and welcome to Center Circle. I am Jermaine Brown. This week we zone in on one of the pioneers in women's football in Jamaica, Charles Edwards. Charlie, as he's otherwise known, has made a significant contribution to the growth of the sport locally and deserves a star among all those who have had their names on the Wall of Fame. A number of Jamaicans have paved the way in the development of the women's game in the country. One of them is Charles Edwards.
Thanks for the kind words, and I should hope so. After 45 years of working assiduously, I'm happy to know that.
When Edwards started in the sport as a coach, it was purely for the love of it.
You know, as a youngster coming out of high school, playing Manning Cup, playing a lot of corner leagues and club football, went off to university, and when I came back, I was supposed to go back to university, but it never happened. Father got sick and I stayed here. And then I got back into football at Constant Spring, and the love for it, just like a cut down tree, just started to bloom again. And from ever since, it became a part of my DNA, the love for it, the love for helping youngsters, guiding them, creating discipline, showing them that there's another way to life. And you know, the success that I've reaped with that, I am enjoying it now, because ever so often, a young man or a young lady will come to me and say, "Coach, if it wasn't for you." And I'm happy that I was able to contribute that and loved it. So the football became a part of all of that. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed winning, won't lie to you, but seeing the lives turned around was far more significant for me. Quite a few even went off to university. You have seen some who never had the opportunity to turn their lives around, became more responsible, more disciplined, raising a family and doing well. You know, so I'm excited for that.
Was there a role model? Was there someone who you have seen doing and decided that you want to be like?
You know, I've had so many role models. My father was a big role model, my mother too. They were two great parents, and I love them for what they did in terms of bringing me up. But in high school, I had people like Isaac Henry, S.W. Isaac Henry, who mentored me, and I was very close to him. I did my book work, I played cricket, I played football, but you know, I just enjoyed talking to him, being around him. You had other teachers who were mentors also. My Manning Cup coach, Mr. Olden, was an exceptional coach. And then you had, you know, growing up, you had like Chung Fa. I would listen to Chung Fa, love to hear what he was saying. He was such a great motivator, such a lover of the sport. You had Maurice Lynn, who I second Maurice Lynn for quite a few years at Constant Spring, and he was a brilliant football mind. And I think tactically, he helped me to grow. You know, I've seen him do some things sometimes that I question, but when you saw the results on the field, you had to stop and lift your hat to him and say, yes, I understand. You know, so I had all these role models, and then I'd look at international coaches and how they function, what they do, you know, the Pat Rileys, guys like those, and really just love how they dealt with the sport, how they command that level of respect, the leadership, how they lead. It was excellent.
You mentioned about school, but you didn't say, but you're talking about stats.
My school years were great. The truth though is that I was supposed to go to Ulmas, but because I was so young and I got through, my mother insisted, because I was so technical minded, that she wanted me at St. Andrew Technical. And I gave her a hard time going down the first day. It's a lot of argument between me and my mother going there, because this is not what I wanted. But when I entered the gates, I saw the lush green fields, I started to smile. I was like, okay, we can work with this. And you know, I have no regrets. I had a good time there, I learned a lot, and it has made me who I am today.
What sort of player were you?
You know, it's funny you asked me that question, because we had a 65th anniversary this week and weekend gone. And I was talking to a couple of the past players, and I asked them, what type of player was I? Dirty, hard, very rough, not the most talented, but some said that I had a good mind for the game, read the game well, know where to be and stuff like that, but physically very tough. You know, you'd come in crunching and stuff like that. And I remember 1 and 2 plays from high school, and based on how I coach now, the curiosity is in my head, what on God's earth were you thinking when you went in and made some of those plays? Because they were crunching tough tackles, and I'm like, wow. And you know, thank God I didn't get any bad injuries.
Played for Constant Spring after, right?
I left high school and played for Constant Spring. Yeah, I was supposed to go back to Manning Cup and play again, but Bob Campbell came in and we had a little tiff. And because I had all the subjects already, I just left and I came straight to Constant Spring and played about 2 years for them and then went off to university.
And you call it a day as a player?
As a player, yes. Because at that level, I didn't see my talent level carrying me to any top level. Plus, I was always book inclined. I always had a dream of doing architecture, and I went and I got that.
Despite coaching at the Manning Cup level with St. Andrew Technical and at the Premier League level with the Constant Spring, Edwards has always been identified as a women's coach.
It's interesting because you're perfectly correct. That's what a lot of people refer to me as a women's coach. But sometimes I have to remind them that I coached men for not the same amount of years, but I was at Constant Spring for about 13 years. And we had a fair amount of success carrying the team from the lowest level up to Premier League finals against Reno at the time. National Stadium and return game was down at Reno. So I've done a fair amount, and then I've done in camps around the place, around the world. I've done men's team a lot too, and I enjoy coaching both. But I guess most of my success, or the better part of my successes, came in women's football. And was far more prominent in that, and then I did national in women's football, so I can understand why people would label me as a women's coach, and it doesn't bother me. I'm happy for it because my success in women's football is significant, and I'm happy for that. I oftentimes look back and smile and enjoy it, so it's cool with me.
When you look at the two sexes, right, one would be more challenging, of course. Which of them would be for you? Which of them was for you?
More challenging would have been the men. Both of them have their challenges, to be honest with you. But the men's side, the ego. You'll give a male player instructions and they'll go on the pitch and they want to do their own thing. And oftentimes you get very annoyed at them and you have to flag them down, stop them, rush at them and no, and try to correct them. And you have some male players that are cool, but you have some who are very tough-headed and persistent and get in their way because that is what their other coaches taught them. So it's like they don't have your confidence yet, so you need to listen to them in their terms of their body language and how they play. As far as the women's football is concerned now, when you coach the female players, they don't have that ego problem. They're easier to coach, they're easier to direct, they're easier to work with, but they do give you trouble. Especially that time of the month, some of them do give you a hard time, but once you understand how they function, you don't have a problem. You know, sometimes you back off and you leave them. They'll come full circle right back around. Sometimes another problem with the female players is you can't show favoritism to one or two players. It will fragment your team. You will start to see the team splitting up and groups going off and stuff like that. So you have to have one rule and you have to show that same level of how you deal with it with every single player. So that is where the caution has to be seriously adhered to.
When we return, Edwards got into women's football by chance.